Hello and welcome back to another episode of and a a vlog with me, Jamster. Um, so I want to talk about gravitational waves, which were discovered, or not discovered, but proven to exist. I think it was within the last week and a half at least, which I believe I don't know the exact purpose or benefits of it. Um, but what I do know is it was definitely one of the largest discoveries in a while in that sort of field of science. At least in this year, obviously, but it's not hard to beat anything. There's not been much of a year to beat. Um, but it's interesting because this is something that people, pardon me, theorized existed for many years, and they had no fundamental proof or easy way of proving it through experiments that these things existed. But something that I understand, from what I understand, is that it allows scientists with a bit of better understanding of it, in theory, what they believe it can do is allow us to work, or not work out, actually see the Big Bang, something that was thought impossible because the light had already passed us, or whatever. But somehow, gravitational waves apparently will let us see further back in time than we expected, because obviously light travels at a fixed speed, and so a planet that's really really far away, it's actually millions. It could be millions of years ago that the light we're seeing right now, in some cases, to the point where that planet may not even exist in present time, which is just nuts. Like when you think about space, everything we see in the night sky is so far away that what we're seeing is years off. Like the light hitting the sun, or us from the sun, travels at least several years. I don't know. I think it's like 7.5 years. Don't like it. That wouldn't be 100% correct. It's probably like maybe 5, 6 years. I don't know. There's some period of time. It doesn't happen instantly. It happens fast because it's traveling huge distances, but it's not instant, obviously. And it's crazy to think that the light that hits us from our planet or from the sun is several years old by the time, or the yeah, it's old basically. It's not brand new. Like it's not like if I switch off the light that's above me, I won't even notice. Like my brain could not comprehend that the light turned off. Like I wouldn't see particles of light just going away and then suddenly just see blackness sort of slowly pitch down. But if you could somehow make a room the size of our solar system, I imagine that you probably could see the light slowly disappear and darkness would appear behind it if you had like a light source like the sun flick on and off. Which I guess brings me to a question. I imagine there'd be theories on that sort of thing. Even though I guess actually there probably isn't theories, because you can probably prove it with some very fast cameras. Actually, no, not even a camera could be fast enough to witness it, because you would move at the speed of light, and then it's interesting. Quantum physics and relativity sort of make me wonder, like, would I actually see it, or would I don't know. Because, I mean, the light, if I had a light and I was standing in a giant room, the size of the solar system, and then I turned it on and off briefly, would I see a beam of light? And let's just assume that the light fills the entire room on at least evenly, so that it's not like it's a beam, like a standard traditional light, and so like corners would be slightly darker. But would it would it be like a slowly descending beam or sort of wave of light, or would it actually? I don't know. Would it? I imagine because relativity says that the speed of light, or well, relative to you, is always the same, and for this thing to be moving down, I imagine there'd be some complex stuff around it because the light closer to me is going to reach me faster than the light further away, and so perhaps the light near me would become darker faster, so it'd be like a sort of like an angle, or maybe even, well, yeah, I guess an angle might be the way of looking at it. It'd be very weird. I wonder if anyone's ever considered that. This is a very big tangent of gravitational waves. But gravitational waves, in theory, now that they've been proven to exist, in theory allow us to see the Big Bang, which is insane. Like, all those questions about the origin of the universe, about how everything began, can be answered somehow through gravitational waves. And I'm not entirely sure how they do it, but it's something to do with the way you can, because there's light that we simply could not see, and then gravitational waves are allowing us to see the light, I think. It's roughly, probably. But, I mean, to think that, maybe in the next 10, 20 years, we could see clear pictures of the Big Bang would be crazy. All those we have all those illustrations of the Big Bang and what we think it looks like, and it's always big explosion, and I mean it's sort of hard to grasp the idea because we're talking about a universe being created, and I mean it's always sort of amazed me that we think that, or there's a good portion of scientists that think that the universe didn't exist at some point, that it came into existence through some means, which is crazy because it's hard to imagine what it would have been before that. Would there have been anything? Would the universe actually? I mean, I think a lot of theories suggest that before the Big Bang, whether it may be like a revolving cycle in a sense, eventually this universe that we live in destroys itself, collapses or something, similar to like how a star collapses into a black hole, and then the density, I guess, could eventually get so much that it just explodes. But it's hard to imagine that because to think that we cannot know what was on the other side because in theory if it was when the universe was created, then there was just nothing. Nothing is on the other side of the Big Bang. And I don't mean like on the other side, if we could look through the Big Bang we would be able to see something. There are definitely, unless the universe expands only in one direction, which I think we know it isn't at this point. I think we know there's galaxies that are traveling in different directions to our galaxy, the Milky Way. And so, in maybe 1 billion years, you might not even be able to see those planets. I mean, it's insane, but it's the way that the universe is. In the universe, it's always strange to think about because you have this massive, massive solar system that, not solar system, but, well, I guess many, many, many solar systems, like an infinite possible number of solar systems. And in that infinite number of possible solar systems, there is a chance for each one to contain at least some life in some varying degree. And, Like, humans have never been outside our solar system, and we've lived on our planet for I think 50 million years. I mean, we were very primitive for a very, very long time. It's only like in the last 10,000 roughly years that we've really progressed. You know, that's back like, you know, if you go back 5, 6,000 years, not even that actually. If you go back 2016 years, Egypt was still a empire, or not an empire, but they existed. The Egyptian, I don't know what it's called. I get Egyptian Empire, Egyptian, well, the pharaohs, ancient Egypt, and all that. They were around in that period of time, which, you know, I don't know how much longer they lasted after the Romans did, but you know that it is insane. Like, you know, the idea that 2016 years ago there was barely any technology on this planet. We had building methods and there were things probably like chariots at that point, I guess, because the Egyptians did obviously exist around that time, but there wasn't anything complicated or insane. Like, the progression of technology in the human race essentially just, it's exponential. Like, we didn't even have in the last 200 years, we've developed, you know, computers, cameras, and all sorts of electronic devices that would basically, if you gave it to someone so long ago, it'd be witch magic to them. They would just be shocked. They would never believe that what you have made is able to be made by any human on this planet right now. And not to mention the fact that every human on this planet can basically use any piece of technology that we've developed. You know, mobile phones and laptops and computers and all that. I guess it's crazy because we all take it for granted that we can use it. I mean, we sit there and watch some of our parents struggle with it, but even then they can use these devices. But if you showed it to someone from so long ago and told them that, you know, that these things that let us do so much were gonna change the world, basically, they probably would believe the changing the world part, but they wouldn't believe how much it could do. Like, we rely on electronics and stuff a lot more than we sort of think about, but it's not a bad thing. It's like, you know, simulation programs and all sorts of things like that are so beneficial because we don't have to make the mistakes of the past where, you know, to test whether or not a new building type would work, you know, we can just simulate it and we can get a very accurate knowledge about everything about that building before we even build it nowadays. You just give it the right materials, tell it the right properties of that material, and that's it. You can just test out designs and know whether or not it's going to stand. And it's a pretty accurate measurement, like, tool. And that's insane. I feel like I've gone on the biggest tangent. I started off on gravitational waves, and now I'm on insane talking about simulations. But it's it's all got a point to it. The point is that the human race on this planet, we have done some amazing things. We have created things that would never have been deemed possible without the brilliant minds of just a few people have just changed the world in ways that we'd never expect. You know, Alan Turing, I think the guy was, is basically the person. He created the rotating computers, the really really primitive computers that were made in either World War One or World War Two, and all it was to crack the codes for the Germans' radios, and the computer did it. But before that, basically, people would try to, crack the codes themselves, and it was impossible. Cracking some of these codes, even nowadays, like if you tried to crack some very well-made codes without knowing the key, it's almost impossible. And yet, Alan Turing created a computer that did it all for him. I mean, I think it really was a fluke. I think it wasn't the computer that was a fluke, but the key to the code that they needed was basically just one word. And if the movie that came out not too long ago, the one with not Alan Turing, but Benedict Cumberbatch, if I don't know how accurate it is, but I imagine it's probably fairly accurate. I mean, obviously not everything would be included, but I imagine that the way that the code was cracked, according to the movie, was some woman was always having the same conversation with another radio operator, one of the German operators, and it just happened to be that solved the code because it seems so meaningless, but it did. And I guess that's the point of this video. It's the strange, meaningless things that often have the biggest impact on society. Gravitational waves, they didn't seem meaningful, but when you find out that they give the potential to see things like the Big Bang, that is groundbreaking. Like, to see the Big Bang as it happened is insane. That's like traveling billions of years in the past, in the present, without even going in the past. And yet you could potentially do it with gravitational waves. Computers let you do things that would otherwise be deemed impossible, which is also insane. Everything is just insane when you really look at the grand perspective of what the human race has accomplished in a matter of years, really. In the past 116 years, the world has changed so much. Things like nuclear power was never even considered a thing until after World War II, and that was, only like that would have been only like 60, 50 years ago, roughly, before nuclear power became a thing. Things like computers, the internet, they only rose in around the 1980s, which is definitely only 30, 20 years ago. Well, actually, now that I look at the years, it's about almost 40 years ago. But it just would have been impossible. Like, people would never have thought of these things. And you can look even further, like cars. They run on electricity nowadays. Not all cars, obviously, and it's the 100% electric cars aren't the best, but they do. There's automatic cars that drive themselves, and for the most part are very safe. And I mean, novelists sort of predicted these things, but they never would have really imagined that their works would predict the future. They probably just thought this is what they think, and that's it. George Orwell, he wrote the novel 1984, and it depicted a really grim future, and it was a very interesting book, but he was completely wrong in some ways, and very right in others. Yeah, like, it's just the human intelligence is so undervalued nowadays. It's sad in some ways. Like, it's good, but in the same ways, it's very valued. It's confusing. Like, people value it, but they also don't value it. Like, human intelligence and our just ingenuity and our ability to just do anything that we want, really. The human race really can do so much, and we can essentially, like, we're looking at the next 10 years, we could be going to Mars and potentially colonizing another planet, which, as far as we know, we could be the first intelligent race to do that. You know, we look at things like movies where we've depicted what some people believe to be the universe, and that the idea that other alien races have been around for so much longer. The truth is that could happen, but at the same time, maybe it isn't. Maybe we're the first intelligent race. Maybe we're not. You can't really. We don't know for certain until we encounter another race, and it sounds daft, but we can't know. There's an infinite universe as far as we know, or at least potentially an infinite universe out there, which means there's infinite possibilities for life, which means that the chances of us being the only species that is intelligent is slim. But there's also the theory that civilizations, they reach a certain point and you either survive that stage or your civilization crashes, and it's predicted that the human race will crash because of our inability to maintain peace and order, because we are constantly fighting over the strangest things, really. You know, religion, it always is a strange thing that people get arced up about other religions just because of the actions of a few. But anyway, I think we'll leave it there, and I will talk to you guys next week. I mean, technically I'm here. I make videos every day, but you know, vlog-wise, I don't. I just want to end it on a question, I guess. We're nearing the end of Command and Conquer Generals. We've got like 7 more missions, including, well, I think GLA mission 1 comes out tomorrow, I think. So I'm wondering which campaign should I go on to next. I probably will go 0 Hour, but then there's 2 options after that, because the Generals universe is different to the rest of the universes. Whereas the Red Alert and Tiberian series are very much, at least at the beginning, they're interlinked. The chronological timeline, as far as I understand, goes Red Alert, Command and Conquer 1, and then if we follow the Command and Conquer 1 timeline, it goes Command and Conquer 2, 3, 4, and then if we instead follow the Red Alert timeline, it goes Red Alert 2, Red Alert 3, where something happens, and instead of the events of the Tiberian Wars happening, basically Red Alert 2 happens instead. It's just a subtle shift in times and stuff, but the events take a different path, and it results in a different world, although much of the same technologies exist in both universes, because it makes sense. The only difference is Tiberian isn't used as a power source, and so they rely a lot more on a different kind of technology for power, but their units and structures and stuff follow the same sort of progression. So that's the question. Should I go? Well, I guess the question is, should I go and try and play through the games in chronological order, so start in Red Alert and then go like Command and Conquer 1, 2, 3, 4, or should I go Command and Conquer 1, 2, 3, 4 and throw Renegade in the middle, and then have Red Alert as a separate sort of, we'll do that at the end basically, or we could go Red Alert and then Command and Conquer 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, should I do chronological and then start with Tiberian first, or should I do Tiberian all the way through, then do Red Alert? Which it's hard to explain, because I haven't actually played the games to fully understand the timelines and the lore behind it. But I feel like personally I'm opting for them all. I will start on Command and Conquer 1, and then after that go Renegade, Command and Conquer 2, 3, 4, and then Red Alert 1, 2, 3, plus the expansions, of course, for each relative game. Although I think with some of the older games, the expansions just add missions that are just extra. I'm not entirely sure. I do have all of them. Um, I just don't know the sort of limit to what the expansions are. I'll have to investigate that, but we'll see. Um, okay, well, on that note, I will say goodbye, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.